consider that some 30,000 have been added to the live register in a month, the impact of that on family life, on individuals, on dreams, on gifts and capabilities is absolutely cataclysmic. So whatever chance it is of me saying something sensible with a few prayers, I'm not claiming to say anything sensible to that. And so we would ask the Holy Spirit to guide us here today and to help us to come to some outcomes that may help to transform, because change is no longer enough. Change isn't even an option. I also want to say, by way of setting up what I want to talk about, that this crisis, from an international point of view, was both inevitable and predictable. And you'll have to forgive me if I just make a couple of points here, because it sets up the kind of propositions that I want to put to you. Now, the propositions are, I hope, enormously positive. It's a good day, and I was talking to somebody else earlier. What's the name of the lady on Britain's Got Talent or whatever? Was a wonderful singer on. You know the person, she's an absolutely wonderful singer on. And somebody said she had something like 25 million hits. 25 million. Susan Boyle, 25 million hits in 1 week. And that's the power of integrity. That's the power of beauty, because, you know, she really didn't get a great reception when she came on. So I hope that kind of inspiration is running through the audience today. Back in 2000, it did seem to me that the international regulatory system was fragmented. It was ill-equipped to cope with the kind of shocks that are inevitable in a globalized economy. That was clear and evident at the time. In 2006, it was very evident to anybody reading the financial market data, the volatility, almost like the tremors before a quake, that there was something bad going down in the markets. And I wrote about it. In 2008, I was privileged to speak in the European Parliament, and the key point that I was making there was this. This is not just an ordinary cycle. Economics has ups and downs, booms and busts, but this cycle is quite different. And in that difference, we have to look for root causes which we can address, and without which there will be no turning away from the unfolding consequences. So this is quite different. And again, I remember writing in the Irish Times at the beginning of last year that we were probably 1 or 2 steps away from a major meltdown. That nearly happened last September, October. At the last moment, the finance ministers of Europe finally got their act together, but not on a sustainable basis. The IMF managing director made the point that it could very well have happened last year. We've had 3 budgets, and again, I made the financial system, the global financial system, or the global trade system, failing or fracturing. It was simply a very protracted recession. In this instance, the entire global infrastructure is threatened. And here is the really compelling point. We have never experienced anything like the kind of interventions that have been made to firewall and to stop this. They run into unimaginable amounts of money. In the States, $2 to $3 trillion. Now, I'm not going to throw many figures, I'm just going to say that if you take last year alone, the banks wrote off 1,000 billion in bad loans. And if you look at the decline in assets, well, it's a multiple by an order of magnitude of that. So, I'm saying this is the gravity of the crisis. And I'm saying that the interventions so far, both national and international, following the G20 meeting in London, consider the scale of the interventions. Consider the different kinds of interventions, from liquidity support to the markets to initiatives that we wouldn't have thought of 18 months ago. Consider the nationalization of banking systems in the States. Consider the implosion of banks in Wall Street. And consider how the crisis has morphed. It's gone from an exotic crisis in the subprime area to a more generalized financial crisis, to an economic crisis, which we've never seen before. And it is now unquestionably impacting on the stability of political institutions. That's what makes me say this is not just an ordinary cycle. And therefore, when we try to diagnose what the underlying problem is, we'll be better looking for something pretty robust, and we better get it right, because you can't build anything durable or sustainable on sand. Now, my underlying belief is actually this. As a Christian, I believe in hope. I strongly believe in hope. I believe that hope as the evidence-based conviction that the hard work has been done, but that we do have intelligence and free will, the capacity to make good decisions and bad decisions, to have courage and to lack courage. That's the freedom and responsibility that's given to us. So, yes, we can work the way out of this, but also, wars happen. Wars happen. So, with that, I just want to go very briefly, I hope, through the kind of economic evidence that bears out the point that I'm making here. Actually, I see a little statue of a Blessed Lady at the back of the hall there, which maybe is the signal of the kind of hope that's needed. But I wanted to go through the economic and financial evidence that substantiates the case that I'm making. And then I want to talk with you for a little while, if I may, about where we should go from here. My son is not here. Okay. Yeah. At the beginning of, or near the beginning of St. John's Gospel, Christ poses a question. What do you want? What do you want? Now, in Ireland, we've had an extraordinary experience over 5,000 years. We go back a long way. But in our recent history, we've experienced everything from famine to emigration. We've experienced deprivation, mass unemployment, hopelessness, as whole generations of my students emigrated to unprecedented wealth. My children and my students never experienced what some of us here will remember of the 1980s. And so they haven't been sensitized to what can happen. But equally, they're coming into a land now that is quite different from anything they've fathomed. And so the question that I think we have to address is, what do you want? I'll come back to that question.